This meeting has been given public notice in accordance with section 19.83 and 19.8.4 of Wisconsin state statutes in such a form that will apprise the general public and news media of subject matter that is intended for consideration and action. Roll call shows that all trustees are here with the exception of trustee Pieper, who is excused for the evening. Right now, I'd like to go to citizen input. Feel free to step forward, your name, your address, please, and try to keep your comments to approximately 3 minutes if you have anybody. Would anybody like to speak tonight?
I would like to speak tonight. My name is Jan Miller. I wanted to make a couple of comments. I feel like I need to address the chiefs. I'm really in support of our wonderful police and fire departments. And I have been on this board, public safety, and I've been trying to assist getting more personnel for both departments for over 2 years. Anyway, so let's talk about facts because you are numbers people. And I wanted to see the cost versus the benefit. And my point tonight to all of the public safety board members is each one of you has in your own way asked the Administrator Krecklow for a report with ideas for paying for police and fire within the budget. And the 2024 budgets for fire and police are at the end of this meeting agenda. I thought that those budgets numbers should be moved to the front of the agenda. I wanted to remind you that the 2021 audit came back in April of 2023, and the audit was off $750,000. The actual 1.1 million surplus turned into $350,000 surplus. And where was that applied? So now we don't have the 2022 audit back, and it's supposed to be completed by Baker Tilly. It's supposed to be presented September 18th. We're told by the finance director that there's going to be in 2024 an estimated deficit of $900,000. $900,000. It's to be determined. So, but the good news is that the village of Germantown is getting $498,000 new money for police and fire. So the police and fire would be happy with some extra personnel. And I think that both Chief Dillon and Chief Snow have reiterated that if they could get some people in 2024, that it would help their staff tremendously. So what about 2 police in a squad car and 2 firefighters? So I just wanted to reiterate that if you look at the minutes, each of you have asked for a spreadsheet to say, what is the cost of doing a referendum? What is the cost of hiring, 12 firefighters and 4 police people? So please get those numbers before you make a decision. I'd appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you for your comments tonight.
Sure.
Other members of the general public, please. Lost and found?
Yeah, thank you.
Oh.
What's in it?
Rewards will be paid at the next village board meeting.
Okay. Melanie Smythe, N14W17938 Cedar Lane. I just wanted to say that I'm in full support of bringing on more personnel for public safety. I think that there are, it sounds like there's some money that has been made available, which should be put to that use. This has been an area that has been neglected over the last few years. And based on what's happening in the world in general, which is culture is deteriorating. Our society is also not going so well these days. There are problems in general with this area, well, all the world. I mean, if you look at how crazy things are, public safety is the #1 responsibility of the village board and this group. So I absolutely condone and corroborate that that money should go towards the police and fire. I also question why those numbers have not been provided. I don't know why you put up with it. I mean, you've asked repeatedly, we've asked repeatedly, why do those numbers not get to you? I think that's a dereliction of duty, personally. Get those numbers so that you can look at what needs to happen from a budget standpoint. You know, do we really have to cut personnel or operations by 6%? Do we need to cut out 10% of roadworks? What are the real numbers? I mean, we shilly-shally around this, but no one really does anything. But it starts with the numbers. Let's get the numbers. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments today. Any other members of the general public, please?
Scott Effley, W159N10514 Old Farm Road. I know that you know I would say something tonight, and I hope not to beat a dead horse, but I've been coming to meetings for 2 years consistently. I come to a lot of meetings. I know all of you, you know I do. And I have witnessed the same thing. I remember Trustee Hudson saying, I've been asking for this information for 6 months in a row. Why don't I have it? That was last year. I remember quotes from all of you. I remember Trustee Nerither asking for information. I remember Trustee Baum, who's one of my trustees, asking for information, break down the numbers, bullet points, give us options to try to fund some help for these gentlemen, who, by the way, I believe in public safety as much as anyone. And you know what? We don't have a $900,000 budget gap. We have a $1.4 million budget gap. And why is that? Because the $500,000 we got from the state, which was never budgeted for, which we never had before, which is a gift from God, was passed at the state level to provide officers for public safety. That was the whole impetus. Go read all the stuff. You guys know that. So why we're using it to close a budget gap, I don't care why we're doing that. Maybe we need to cut 1.4 million and give them officers and EMS and ambulance help or whatever, okay? We can't use 500 that we never budgeted for and never had before. It's supposed to go to help those gentlemen. Okay, for salaries, not personnel, David, we got to look inside this and look for personnel, because overtime for the police alone is $220,000, okay? That is at least one police officer we can add at time and a half of 220. We probably can add an officer. Why don't we do that? I don't want to get in a debate about it, but why do I keep having to bring this up over and over again? And you know, I've met with Mr. Krecklow and Matt. I've looked at our fire protection fees. We just make excuses. We don't really try to give them help. And I don't know why. You think a referendum is going to solve everything, and adding $815,000 to our levy forever is going to solve all your problems. Well, what if it doesn't pass? Tell me what the option is. This board, Mr. Krecklow, what's the option if the referendum does not pass? I have not heard an option, okay? And the budget numbers I see are, to be honest, a joke, okay? They don't tell me anything. I can't learn anything. And I've had a lot of budgeting experience in my life, trust me. And there's no decisions that can be made on this that's helped. It's ballpark numbers. It's yabba dabba do. Real numbers in front of this board and the village board, you can make a decision, good, bad, or indifferent. Don't just run to a referendum. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments this evening. Would any other members of the public like to make comments tonight? Okay. Before we go on, I'd like to just give a public thank you to Riker, who gave me a tour of the fire department and answered an extensive list of questions that I had on Monday. It was grateful. And I would love everybody on this committee to also take some time and go spend it with Riker. Very informative. And thank you very much. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes, please.
I will second that.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Seeing there's no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to section 5, the monthly police reports, please. Chief Snow?
Thank you. I would like to point. Thank you. I would like to point out a typo in the monthly report under the comparisons for, I believe it is calls, where it shows 20 to 19, that is actually 23 compared to 22. Those numbers are all right. It's just they're labeled wrong. Overall cause of service, you can see a slight increase from last year, about 200 calls up to date for increase from last year. Over last weekend, we did have about 33 vehicle entries. During that same time, there were 2 garages that were entered, so 2 burglaries, 2 vehicles stolen. We still are investigating that. We're reaching out to the public for video. We have received a lot of ring camera videos, things of that nature. So it's still under investigation. It looks like upward of 6, what appears to be young men were involved in this in the early morning hours. In total, 31 vehicles entered, kind of all over the southeastern part of the village and the subdivisions down there. That is all I had.
Thank you. Committee, any questions for Chief Snow about the monthly police report, please? Monthly fire department report, please.
All the numbers for the monthly fire department report are tracking pretty much as they have been through the last year or so. I do want to bring to this panel's attention that you will be seeing a Mequon ambulance driving around our community. We have 1 ambulance that is in Iowa right now for some warranty work getting done, and another ambulance that the air conditioning unit died on it over the weekend. So we have borrowed an ambulance from Mequon till we get one of them back at least. In addition to that, we did have one of our engines go down this week as well, also with an air conditioning pump problem. But the mechanics are working very diligently to get those back as soon as we can.
Chief Delane, borrowed as in free or borrowed as in we pay for that?
Borrowed as in free. At the beginning of this year, Mequon merged with Thiensville Fire Department, so they had some surplus apparatus and they were just allowing us to use it.
Thank you. Any questions for Chief Delane tonight, please? Overtime reports, please. Police Department.
Our overtime is consistent with what it has been all year. We do have recently 2 of our officers completed their field training, are working solo patrol, assigned to 3rd shift and 2nd shift. One of the laterals is field training on 3rd shift. Depending on how long that takes, we should be up to full staffing by the end of this year. We were anticipating some retirements for 2024, so it will be short-lived. But we still have one in the academy ready to start then at the beginning of the year.
Could you guesstimate the annualized overtime cost for 2023 for us, please? Just a ballpark. Any ideas? Total?
I'm trying to think of are the reports on here? I'm assuming it's going to come close to that $200,000 range
For the year.
for the year.
Thank you. Any other questions for Chief Snow? Chief Delane, please.
With the addition of the battalion chief, we were up to full staffing. However, one of our members is now out on maternity leave, so we should see a slight uptick on our overtime again. We do try and fill those positions with fill-in people whenever we can, but if we can't, they are offered to full-time.
And same overtime question for you, please, Chief Delane. Again, ballpark estimate, nothing, not
I
gonna
think it's
hold
going to
you.
be around 120,000
Total?
from what I recall off the top of my head.
Thank you. Policy updates, Police Department, please.
And none for police.
Fire Department, please.
None for fire.
Thank you. Moving on to unfinished business 6, issues of obscene music, public disturbances, and damage at Kinderberg Park. So I'll start this one. So the Park and Rec Committee has voted, and we are not going to put the basketball hoops up for the remainder of 2023. And we are going to take another look at that topic beginning in March of 2024. To my knowledge and getting feedback from some of the residents in the area, it has calmed down a little bit. But I also want to say that school has also started too. So there is an annual slowdown also. We are also, the Park and Rec Department is going to put 2 or 4 hot coal bins in Kinderberg Park because cooking with grills is allowed in any of our parks. And while we do allow cooking in the parks, we have no containers for hot coals. So we're also going to do that, and hopefully that'll cut down on some of that. Chief Snow, are you aware of any other obscene music or public disturbances within the last, say, 21 days?
None. I ran numbers going back to June. So for our calls for service, if our officers do extra patrol, they take a call basically so that we can track what type of time we're spending in these different locations for extra patrol and things of that nature. So out of the 168 calls that I found going back to June 1st, 120 of them were our officers conducting extra patrol. The next biggest was parking violations, and those were kind of split up between 9 that were definitely violations and 6 that were would fall in line with if they had rented the facility and could drive up to unload or something like that. So,
And
as-
those 9 are parking at the shelter?
pretty much anywhere in Kinderberg where they weren't supposed to be.
Thank you.
DCs, we had 4 vandalisms, or 5, and those have been very substantial ones where there's a significant amount of cost to village property. After hours complaints, there was basically 6 where they were just in the park longer than they should have been. Some miscellaneous ones that there were 7 that just didn't fall neatly into anything. Electric scooters on the pathway, found property complaints, and other miscellaneous complaints. But our officers have been diligent about getting into the parks and conducting the extra patrol, and I do think that's helped. I think they're more visible, and I think people have taken notice. I think taking the rims out has certainly discouraged people from using the courts and probably from a lot of the issues with loud music and things of that nature.
Thank you. Chief Delane, anything or no?
Nothing that I'm aware of.
Thank you. Trustee Baum.
So we've taken away a benefit of the residents.
Yep.
So that's one of the comments that I heard from the residents, that they didn't want to lose their enjoyable space. I didn't see any barricades up when I drove through.
That's correct.
Why did we not do that?
Because we don't have money. It was proposed for ARPA funding, and the village board decided to remove that from the Park and Rec Department. So that's why we don't have barricades there.
Just a couple of wooden barricades, just a couple of street closed barricades?
No.
We have no money for that?
No, the money was proposed to put the ballards up to replace the gates that were taken out,
Well,
is the funding that.
my proposal wasn't to do anything that drastic. It was just to put up a couple of street closed barricades. something simple just to keep people from
So-
driving back there.
So we do have signs up at all of those entrances right now that say authorized vehicles only,
And people aren't following that.
and people are not following that.
And if I put a larger barricade to prevent people from driving in there, as
I would-
opposed to a little sign.
I would be more than happy to explore that as a potential solution.
The gates were largely ineffective when those were up there. We would have people routinely driving around those gates was what I remembered when those gates were up before they were taken down.
How far out, you put a gate on either, post on either side of the pathway and they drive around that.
Right.
If I put 3 or 4 barricades up there, they gotta go a long way around 3 or 4 barricades.
Sure.
Do we have the ability to do that?
I will talk to Scott about getting something out there. We can certainly try it. It does.
Terrible that our residents can't use the amenities of the village.
I
because
agree.
We can't find a solution.
I agree.
I thought that was a cheap and expensive solution, but that's all I've got.
Thank you.
I'll keep going there. I got an email from a resident who listed 20 other things that we could do this, we could do this. When I went through those 20 other things, striping the sidewalk, putting emblems on the walkway to prevent people from, all that stuff costs a lot of money to do. That's why I didn't bring those kind of things up. But for the resident that did bring that to my attention, everything comes with a cost. I'm trying to hit the low cost things first before we start. All this other stuff has to go through a budget to make it affordable. So
That's great. Trustee Narrator.
No comment. I'm just listening.
Thank you. Moving on to 7 subsection B, denial of direct seller transient merchants and solicitor's license, Adam M. Williams, please.
Hey, didn't we?
Oh, I apologize. Sorry. That was my fault. Let's try to go alphabetical. Oktoberfest Germantown Historical Society, Inc., Deansville Historic Park, 9/23/23 to 9/24/23. Temporary Class B fermented malt beverage and wine picnic license, James Dick, President. And again, my apologies.
make a motion to approve the Class B liquor license as presented.
I will second that.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. It's unanimous. Let's go back to B, 7B, denial of direct sellers, transient merchants and solicitors license, Adam M. Williams. Chief Snow, please.
At the time of application, Mr. Williams did have an active warrant. That warrant was still active as of 2 days ago, along with a criminal record that would not lend well to issuing a solicitor's license.
Could we ask what the warrant is for, please?
So I believe the warrant was without having it in front of me, I'd be guessing without having it in front of me.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the denial of the direct sellers.
Motion has been made.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Item C, issues of panhandling in the village, discussion to include comments from the chief of police. There was a complaint at a recent meeting that panhandling is on the rise in the village, and apparently we don't have a ordinance against it. So unless the private landowner makes a complaint, the police cannot do anything about it, is what we were told.
And I would say that that's fairly accurate. I checked, we've taken 12 in 2023. That is a lot for Germantown. There has been an uptick over the summer. The Supreme Court visited this back, I believe, in either 2005 or 2015, one of the fives. It's constitutionally protected. It's looked at as a freedom of speech issues. So you can't really have a ordinance that bans panhandling per se. The communities that have the ordinances have ordinances that ban it in certain locations, or have ordinances that ban what they call aggressive panhandling. I've seen that one. I think Madison has one against aggressive panhandling, or might have been, maybe not Madison. Regardless, we have a disorderly conduct ordinance that handles that. So we would have ordinances that handle issues that if someone was out of line or being aggressive, we could certainly take action. If they are on private property and the property owner asks them to leave and they refuse to leave, we have a trespassing ordinance that would cover that. Some of the businesses have trespassed them, like Walmart. Others, like the McDonald's on Mequon Road, has been okay with them staying there to panhandle. So it's kind of based on what the preference of the property owners.
So when I go astray, please correct me. So the city of Milwaukee about 2 years ago put in an act that you were not allowed to panhandle at intersections. And so I have seen the same panhandling at the McDonald's location that you mentioned. And to me, that is an intersection.
Sure.
Would we do something like that?
Probably something like that, because basically what the ruling had said was it can't obstruct traffic, and you can probably make an argument that if it's at an intersection, it's obstructing traffic. So the ordinances that do prohibit it in certain locations, certain amount of feet away from, say, a sidewalk cafe or things of that nature, where they might be disrupting a business, even if they are on public property. But you'd have to be able to articulate that there's some type of disruption to either pedestrian traffic or motor vehicle traffic.
Committee, any questions, please?
Mr. Chair, if I might add to that.
Attorney Sajak, please.
I'm hoping I'm not overly loud like Trustee Pieper was last month. If not, if I am, I'll speak quieter.
You're actually a little quiet and calm tonight.
Oh, well, that's good. The one thing I will add with respect to the types of ordinances that you just described, limited to certain locations, is that if you have that type of regulation, it needs to be applied to everybody. So while it's not an issue in Germantown, I don't think, one of the things that communities have, for example, when you say you can't panhandle in the street, is that you have, fire departments, volunteer fire departments that go out and fill the boot and stand in the intersection collecting money to do that. That likewise would be prohibited. If you have, the local cheerleading squad or baseball squad that's doing the brat fry in front of the Ace Hardware, and they want to go stand along the roadway, drawing attention to it, that also would be prohibited under those types of regulations. And so you have to be uniform in doing it. It's not to say that it couldn't be done, but you just need to be very targeted with where you want to have those types of restrictions.
How big of a problem has this become? Is it we getting numerous phone calls?
It's not a severe tax on our resources, and the people that we've dealt with have been cooperative. If we've asked them to move along, they have moved along. If the businesses have asked them to move along, in most cases, they've done that have been pretty cooperative about it.
So it's not gotten to a significant issue that we need to take action at this time.
I don't think that it has. I said 12 over the last year, but a lot of those were concentrated to this summer.
Can we put a tickler in to talk about this again in maybe 3 months to get an updated count? Does that make sense?
Sure.
Thank you. Sure. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that, everybody. Item D, squad replacement. I believe Chief Snow, this is you.
Yes, thank you. This request is to replace a squad that was damaged in a car accident and a squad accident that was totaled. We needed a replacement squad. For some reason, I'm not seeing my summary notes in there. The long and short is I've included the price of the new squad. We had a check from our insurance to cover 46,000 of that. Pat, does that sound right? And the rest would come out of our squad maintenance budget.
It looks like the price is $40,500. Is that correct? Oh, is that right?
That's correct. And then the graphics came out. They were 675 and the equipment total with installation, 8,800 for that.
The equipment is being reused from the old vehicle. What's salvageable?
What was salvageable, correct?
That's still $8,800 of new equipment.
Well, and yeah, and that does include the labor charges for installation. We're like 3,500.
Yeah, we've been through this before. It's the way we've done it the last couple of times we've lost squad cars. So I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of a squad car.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Item E, F-150, request to purchase, please. This is also Chief Snoop.
No, it's fire department. No, police chief. Okay.
Yes,
Thank you.
and we had, I think we did this last year. So one of our budget requests will be an F-150 to replace one of the squads. It will replace the evidence van, which was a transport van that we purchased a number of years ago that sits in the garage. The evidence van the evidence truck would be set up for our evidence technicians. It will be a patrol vehicle, it'll be used on patrol, you'll see it on the road. And it will be a request in our 2024 budget. What we're asking is that we be allowed to order that now. If we order it now, we can order a 2023 at the savings of about $8,000 compared to what they're projected to go up to next year. We understand, they understand that if for whatever reason that would not be approved, they'd sell it to someone else basically. But this would at least allow us to order it in anticipation that it would get approved in the 2024 budget.
Committee, any questions, please? Trustee Baum.
Just to clarify, this is going to be one of the vehicles that you typically get every year.
Correct.
You're just buying it, want to buy it early. I'll make a motion that we forward this to the village board with a positive recommendation.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it just for discussion.
Trustee Nyrider.
This would be a capital item, am I correct?
That's correct.
Because otherwise, if we were talking for the 2024 budget, how do we know, what's going to get approved, as you know? That's fine.
You good? Okay.
Yeah.
And then if we do order it now, are we locking ourselves in? Are we making any kind of commitment?
No, we're just,
Walk away for nothing.
yeah, we're just placing an order.
That we can walk away from.
That we can walk away from. Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. Item F, Germantown Fire Department Command Vehicle Purchase Opticom and Command Cabinet Build. Chief Delane, I assume this is you.
Yes. So what we are asking for is an insert that goes into the back of the Battalion Chief's Explorer. Currently, we have a home-built one in there that is actually rubbing up against the electronics cabinet that holds all of our radio equipment, causing damage to the radio equipment. To the fact that we have to replace one of the radios that is almost $9,000. This cabinet would allow it to fit more properly, fit better. That would take up the slack so that it cannot slide and damage any of our radios. While we were doing this, since we'll have that cabinet out, it would allow us to gain access into the electronics cabinet of that vehicle. And the new intersections that are getting installed in Germantown have Opticom on them, which is what changes the lights as the emergency vehicles go through. So it's a huge piece of safety equipment, allows traffic to know that we're actually coming. So we are requesting $7,180 to make those two purchases.
Is this currently in your budget, chief?
We have the money in our budget for it.
2023 budget?
2023?
It's available. It's not specifically budgeted for it, but it will come out of a regular line item budget.
Okay.
Committee, please.
I make a motion to send forward to the village board a positive recommendation to purchase the said items for $7,180 as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
You have a second.
Wonderful. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. Item G, again, Fire Department portable radio purchase. Chief Delane.
With the new tender that we ordered at the beginning of this year, we did budget money with that to purchase radios, some portable radios and mobile radios for use within that vehicle. We are requesting to use some of that budgeted money to purchase, trying to scroll down so I can see the total, to purchase $35,599.53 for the radios and some additional microphones that have broken this year.
Committee.
Scrolling down as well.
I would move to approve the purchase of 4 portable radios and 14 additional microphones in the amount of $35,599.53 from the account 40-522-570-8520.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions? You've got the money in your budget, Chief Delane?
This was included in the budget for the new tender.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Germantown Fire Department, purchase of hydraulic extraction tools. Chief Delane, please.
This also goes along with the purchase of the tender that we had at the beginning of this year. We did budget extra money to outfit that vehicle, and these would be extrication tools that would be used in car accidents to cut people out of vehicles or in any other industrial accidents that we may need to extricate people from.
Thank you. Committee.
Make a motion to approve the extrication tool purchase as presented.
I will second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any comment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Item I, We Energies Foundation Grant, Germantown Fire Department usage. Chief Delane, please.
Battalion Chief Kerry Rodriguez applied for a grant from We Energies from their foundation, rewarding responders grants. We were awarded $2,000 from that grant, or of that grant, for replacement of 80% of a new quad gas meter. Quad gas meters that will be used to like detect natural gas in people's houses, items like that. So we will be receiving that grant from We Energies and using that to purchase those. In addition to that, a resident today did come to the fire station, and I can't remember her name.
Her name was Greta. She and her husband, Michael.
She and her husband, Greta and her husband, did come forward today and donate an additional $500 to cover the rest of it.
Wonderful.
That's great.
So we gave her a tour and showed her what the device was. So it was very interesting conversation.
That is wonderful.
Well, we thank Greta and Mike for coming forward and doing that for us. Greatly appreciated.
And Carrie for applying for the grant also. Do we, yeah, motion?
Did I not?
We did not.
Motion.
What,
Do we
yeah,
have,
what kind of motion do you want for receiving a grant?
accept money?
Just info,
I,
No worries.
no,
Presentation, I'm
just to update.
all right.
Thank you. Item J, a resolution adopting updated bond schedule for municipal court cases. Attorney
Is-
Sajak or,
Sure, I can
This-
speak to it. Or Mike can, either way.
This is in response to, the 2023 Act 19 went into effect July 7th. It increased the driver improvement surcharge for OWIs and the reckless driving convictions from $435 to $535. We needed to update our bond schedule to reflect those changes to the bond, and that's what we're here for. So the OWI would increase and the reckless driving violation would increase.
thank you. Trustee Baum.
Yeah, can you clarify which is which? The OWI and reckless driving convictions from 435 to 535. But then it goes on to say the new bond amount for OWI is 961. I'm misunderstanding. I'm not.
Yeah,
understanding
that
what the
those
numbers are.
bonds also include surcharges,
So
One's
what the
ticket,
what the
one's a
bond
bond.
number reflects is a couple things. The base forfeiture, which is the amount of penalty that ultimately we see as the community. Although with our agreement with Mid-Moraine, they see a chunk of that as well. And then on top of that, they add various court costs and what they call surcharges, basically state imposed fees to help pay for things. So with an OWI, for example, you'll see the driver safety surcharge, which goes to pay for something that I don't remember what it's for. Some violations have a surcharge that's related to processing and handling of DNA evidence. Obviously not something that we typically see in municipal court, but certain criminal cases, they have those types of surcharges involved. There's a whole list of them. And as Chief notes, this is just an update in statute that we're looking to adopt and don't have really much of a choice in terms of adopting that.
Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve the resolution adopting the updated bond schedule for municipal court cases as presented.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. For those opposed, motion passes. Item K, alternate public safety referendum questions. Administrator Krecklow.
Thank you. As you're all aware, this has been a discussion that we've been having for many months now about how to address the additional staffing needs in the police and fire departments. And I'll just fairly quickly give some background on summarizing some of those conversations to date. The police department has estimated that their additional staffing needs is a total of 4 officers, and that would provide 1 additional patrol officer per shift. The fire department has presented previously that their staffing needs are 12 full-time firefighter paramedic positions. That would provide them with basically the ability to staff 2 additional ambulances per shift, while also being able to, in the case of a fire type of emergency, be able to staff another fire engine. So it's the rationale behind the number of positions that each one of the departments is asking for. the total cost for those 16 positions is about $1.6 million per year. And we have looked at a number of different options for doing that. The ability of the village to raise revenue is limited. We've talked about the public fire protection fee, talked about the wheel tax, and we have discussed it both at the Public Safety Committee meeting as well as at the full village board during budget previews, the impact of the additional $498,000 in shared revenue on the budget. We do, as presented to the village board, there was initially an estimated budget gap of $860,000 going into the beginning of the 2024 budget process. Getting in actual budget requests, it is a little bit higher than that. And, we based, when the finance director put those estimates together, he was basing it just on salary increases without looking at other accounts. Pulling together out what the departments actually submitted, we're working at a gap of about $1.1 million. And that includes the additional $498,000 in shared revenue. So closing that gap is going to require a significant cut to other department budgets. And again, that's as we've been going through these meetings, I think that information has been presented pretty clearly. So in order to meet those staffing needs that the two chiefs have laid out and demonstrated, the only, in my opinion, and a lot of years of putting together municipal budgets and working through these items, there's the only realistic option towards achieving those staffing levels is to go through a referendum process. And we're not the only municipality that's seeing that. Just recently, Cedarburg decided to go to referendum. Port Washington is going to referendum. And I think as we get through this fall, you're going to see other communities that are coming to the same realization that to meet the public safety staffing needs, that there will be another wave of referendum that are going through municipalities coming up in the April election. In the last public safety meeting, one of the questions that came up, are there alternatives, are there options that we could do part of this or phase it in? And that's what's presented here tonight. The first resolution would implement the entire 16 positions, the entire $1.6 million effective at the tax year of 2024 for the budget year of 2025. There are some advantages to going that route. There are also some advantages to taking option 2, which would be to implement half of that increase in 2024 for the 2025 budget and the other half of the increase in 2025 for the 2026 budget. I guess the primary advantage of the second option of phasing that in is that it would give us more time to actually fill those positions and get those firefighters and police officers hired and on board and providing services. It probably would be difficult to get, especially on the fire side, to be able to fire 12 new firefighters in a 12-month period of time. There would be some challenges just with the ability to recruit that number of people. While April still seems like quite a ways away, my recommendation to the committee is to move this forward to the village board, for further action, especially if the position of the committee and eventually the village board is that you would like staff to handle the communication and public outreach that would be necessary for this. I think that if there's not additional resources put into public outreach, one of the best opportunities we have for that is to talk about these issues during the budget process. We'll be holding, I'll be leading as directed by the village board, 3 town hall meetings on the budget. We could include information on this in those town hall meetings. In addition, there are other opportunities that we have to provide information. We have a utility bill that's going to be going out at the end of the month. That's an opportunity to present that information. The longer we wait to move forward with a decision on the referendum, the more of those opportunities that we miss out on, and the more difficult it is to provide residents with information about the referendum. So the village attorney is online as well to answer other questions that you might have. The chiefs we met previously to go through these referendum options, and they're prepared to answer any questions you have about the amount of staffing, the rationale for the staffing that they're asking for. The finance director is here to answer any questions that you might have on what our budget gap looks like and why it's necessary to utilize a referendum to try to meet those staffing level needs as opposed to other options.
Thank you. Committee, any questions? Trustee Baum, please.
Okay, I'm a very visual person. Can we get a printout of, you want 4 police officers, they cost how much? I need a patrol car, that costs how much? Same thing with the fire department. What are the positions? Am I hiring lieutenants, police officers, firefighters, paramedics? What are we all hiring? I'd like to see that.
We have an entire matrix. I think the finance director can get it up on screen right now.
That'd be great if you could do that. Then-
Not right now. It might take a couple of minutes, but
Take
I'm
your
sorry to put you on the spot.
Then
Yeah.
I'll turn to the chiefs and ask Police Chief Snow, if I get 4 new police officers, what does that do for overtime? Does overtime get wiped out now? Same thing with Chief Delane is,
It would not get wiped out because one of the things that we're very lacking when we talk about staffing is not just staffing, it's our minimum staffing levels on the road that I wanted to address for some time. So right now, each shift, we require 3 officers, 1 supervisor. And we're struggling with that on second shift. So
what do you have right now on second shift?
three officers, 1 supervisor. We have 6 officers assigned to each shift. We have minimum staffing levels of 3 officers, 1 supervisors. That allows for people to use comp, to use vacation, to buffer us if someone's injured, something of that nature, someone's on training. But the offset is such that there's never all 6 scheduled on any given day. So typically, we are running at minimum staffing levels of 3 and 1. To get the 4 additional officers, I would be able to increase my minimum staffing levels on second shift so that at all times I would have a minimum of 4 officers and 1 supervisor. Be much more realistic in dealing with the calls for service that we're dealing with, especially when you're talking from 4 to midnight in those hours. We're still trying to fill that additional supervisor role of sergeant position that we don't have yet. We have the 5, we're working toward that. We have the 5 sergeants. We need 1 more to give us 2 sergeants at each shift. When we did refigure, when we went through this command staff update or however you want to say it, one of those detectives from the Bureau was promoted to lieutenant, oversight of support services. So she does not have the same amount of time to deal with investigative matters. So we basically would need an additional person in the Detective Bureau. That last spot would again go toward patrol because right now we are lacking on our patrol services. So that four bodies is kind of right now would just get us to where we need to be. You know, we're anticipating that this village is going to grow to 30,000 people. That doesn't help me 10 years down the road. But for right now, it makes a huge difference for our department. I think my biggest goal right now, my focus is increasing that minimum staffing level on second shift especially, and this allows me to get there.
And however, it does nothing for the overtime. You're, even if we do this, you're still gonna have $200,000 worth of overtime projecting.
Well, that's a hard call, but remember the $200,000 that we've been seeing over the last, we've had enormous turnover the last 3 years, and we'll probably see some more next year. That's all going to taper off significantly within the next few years. Us old dudes will be gone, and it'll be a pretty young department, which is what we had seen for years and years. And now we're just slowly working our way back into that. So do I think that it's going to be a relief to some degree on overtime? I do. But a lot of that is just going to be us getting back up to our full staff, which would help us pretty significantly right now as well.
So getting you up to full staff is gonna help significantly. And we have taken the steps to get you back to full staff, and you are currently one short of full staff? Is that what I recall hearing?
We have that person hired, but they're in field training, so not really counting them because we can't count them on the road, but within the
So you're
next,
one short of full staff.
correct.
And that one person is being trained right now.
That is correct.
So within 3 or 4 days, you should be up to full staff.
Months.
3 or 4 months. That's what I was looking for. Okay, so you'll be up to full staff. Then we should start to have reduction in the overtime. And then the 4 new officers are for anticipated growth of the community.
More so, to some extent, yes, but more so kind of as a reflection of the growth we've seen that we haven't kept up with. That staffing level on second shift probably should have been increased a number of years ago. And now with the additional calls for service that we're seeing, we really need to get that minimum staffing up, that one officer, and this would allow me to absolutely do that.
Okay, and at some point, I would like to see a projection for when we do hit 30,000 people. What am I going to need for police at that point? Projection, so we can start planning for.
Well, certainly. And I mean, then you're looking at a community the size of West Bend, and I don't know how many sworn 50s, but I could get those numbers certainly.
Just, we're looking for 4. Are we looking for another 4 to do that? Are we looking to double our staff to do that? What's the magnitude I'm facing? I'm certainly not going to be in this position for that, but I'd like to have some idea going forward.
Sure.
If I can just add to the chief's comments, especially about the overtime, and I think Chief is exactly right about the way he views overtime going forward, is that over the next 2, 3, maybe 4 years, there's going to be some additional retirements, and it's the retirements and then the replacement of those officers that drives the overtime. Because when they're replaced, it takes 6 months, 9 months before, by the time you actually hire someone, before they're actually performing the full duties and responsibilities of the officer. In the meantime, that gets filled in with overtime. So even when this one officer who's in field training right now, when he gets back on, by the time that happens, we're probably going to have another vacant position.
From retiring.
From a retirement.
Mhm.
So, one way to look at this is from the police department perspective, is the 4 officers are kind of catching up. And we've added a couple of officers here over the past few years. This is kind of catching up, I think, from a period of time when there weren't officers added. When that overtime starts going down in another 3 or 4 years, I think that a good use of that would be to add another officer at that point. Instead of just capturing the savings, then we can start working towards 2030 or 2035 as the population goes up, that we're doing that incrementally and maybe avoid the need for another referendum in another 10 years.
So the 4 police officers are to get additional officers, and then we actually need to get 8 because we need 4 to replace 4 that are retiring. I need to replace everybody that's retiring, plus I need 4 more. talked about it. Yeah. Yeah. So I need 4 new ones and we got to anticipate replacing 4. So I need 8 over the next year is what what you're anticipating.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Let's go over to the fire department. Tell me about the fire department. What are we're hiring paramedics, we're hiring firefighters, we're hiring firefighter paramedics, we're hiring chiefs, we're hiring battalion. What am I doing? Who am I getting? What am I getting?
So first of all, same here, this will not eliminate overtime. We have shifts that hang over, someone's running a call, that hangs over to the next day, that turns into overtime. We have a major incident, they come in off duty, that's overtime. They have to go to court, that's overtime. So there will never be a point where overtime is eliminated in our department. However, the way we operate right now is a typical shift is 5 people. 2 people on one ambulance, 2 people on another ambulance, 2 people on the second ambulance, cross over to a fire engine if there's a fire call, and then a battalion chief. We have the ability to absorb 1 vacation per shift.
With those 5 people.
Those 5 people. That takes the battalion chief out of the battalion chief vehicle and puts him on an ambulance or her on an ambulance or onto the fire engine. If that person is out, or the battalion chief is out on a run, that leaves no supervision left in the fire station to make decisions, especially in the middle of the night, about what the staffing levels are. And that could be just as simple as they're at St. Luke's Hospital and don't have radio communication to know what else has happened in the village. We do callbacks to bring in off-duty people whenever both ambulances are out. Lately, we have not been getting anybody to come in for callbacks. So therefore, our station sits empty, period, until someone can make a call. And that could be to mutual aid for Richfield, Menominee Falls, anybody like that. And we do have those abilities with MABUS. However, MABUS does not solve anything for us. And I mean that because, and this just happened a month or 2 ago, Hartford had a structure fire, Mequon had a structure fire at the same time. All of our mutual aid departments were at those structure fires. We had 2 ambulance calls, and then we had a fire call all at the same time. And now I'm waiting for a fire engine from Pewaukee to come to our fire call. So what these 12 people would do would allow us to staff a third ambulance and one of our heavy pieces of fire apparatus, an engine or a ladder truck. It would also allow us to absorb more vacation time without having to refill it with overtime all the time. One other item that we have to watch out for is that by law, anytime we have a structure fire, for every 2 people that enter the structure, there has to be 2 people on the outside of the structure. And with 5 people right now, we can have 2 in and 2 out, but we also need someone to operate the pump on the fire truck. And we also need somebody to direct the fire scene. So the people who are directing the fire scene can't be inside fighting the fire because they don't know what's going on outside. So with this staffing situation, this will allow us to accomplish all those goals. Now, as far as supervision, we have different models. Typically in fire service, span of control is 3 to 7 people. So one person can adequately supervise 3 to 7 people. We do have those built into the contract as a promotion, not as hiring from outside. So those types of situations would be handled as a promotion as we get to that point. As Administrator Kreklow had talked about, as far as recruitment from the fire service, it's very slim pickings as of lately. The last recruitment that we did, I think we got 4 applicants for 2 positions. So it would take some time to work into this. But ultimately, this is where we would need to be to have adequate staffing and to ensure that we can take care of ours and don't have to rely on everybody else. If you look back into our monthly reports, you can see how many times people are coming by us and how many times we are going by them. It's because nobody has any staff for all of our departments around here. We talk about consolidation all the time. Consolidation is great. But if you take 3 short-staffed fire departments and consolidate them, you now have one giant short-staffed fire department.
Sure. And, okay, so you're looking to take a crew of 5 and move it to a crew of 9? Is that how much, so you get three, you don't do shifts, you do something else.
We do shifts.
Call them shifts?
Yeah, we do shifts, they're 24 hours.
You're taking a shift of 5 and making it a shift of 9. 3 of those shifts gives you the 12 people.
Not necessarily.
Oh, okay.
So we have some options in this point. We do have a very dedicated crew of paid on premise people who do come in and pick up shifts.
Yeah.
However, they all have full-time jobs, so they work during the day. So some of our options would be is to take some of these full-time people and put them on a 50-hour day schedule. So we still have these paid on premise people picking up hours, and it boosts our department during the day when we are the busiest and have the hardest time finding people to fill in.
And then I think I missed something there. Paid on premises, so that's just, what's a 50-hour day? Tell me,
So
sounds like
for-
overtime to me, right
No,
off the bat.
so in our union contract, we have what's called a flex position, and that flex position is a full-time firefighter who works 50-hour work week during the daytime period, not on a 24-hour shift.
Okay,
So we can take some of these positions and actually make them, a halftime position or 2 halftime positions out of 1 full-time position, so we can keep our people who are paid on premise active within our department and active within their skills, and bolster our department during the day with 50-hour a week full-time employees, not just all of them on 24-hour shifts. So what you might end up seeing is let's say, 10 full-time people on during the day and dropping that down maybe at night to 8 or 9. Some variation of that, and those aren't exact numbers. Just so we're getting people in who still keep their skills up and working. Because ultimately what would happen if we were to take all those paid on premise positions and just leave them as to only you pick up somebody's shift, they're not going to get a whole lot of shifts because those are going to go down. And that dwindles our pool of recruitment for number 1. It dwindles their skills, number 2. And quite frankly, they just won't be here because there's no opportunity for them to ever get on the truck because they're all gone before they even get here.
all the trucks are gone before they get here.
If there was a fire scenario and we're calling some of these people back, they would never have a chance to get on.
Okay.
So that's why we put them on a shift to help them.
Is there a different dollar value for this 50-hour person?
All of our employees are on the same yearly pay schedule.
But you talk about a part-time person.
Sure.
Is
So
it-
our
they're cut
part-time
in half.
person makes the same hourly wage as a full-time person for that step in the pay scale.
And you're gonna have all the hours, you're not gonna save any hours by going to this 50-hour person. You're gonna have two, you talked about splitting one job by 2 people.
Correct. Possibly.
Well, I'm still getting the same number of hours. I'm still getting, the total hours are still the same. I just got half to this guy and half to this guy. So there's no savings of money in that scenario. It's just a functional thing that may work better
The
for you.
only savings to be had was instead of always having to fill a shift, we could have a run short period or run short stopgap in our schedule.
What is that
Uh,
idea? What is that?
So instead of having, I'll get myself confused with numbers.
Don't look to the audience to help.
Instead of having all the people on the shift all the time,
Yes.
I could then allow, let's say, 2 people to have vacation without having to bring in somebody to refill them.
Thus, I'm saving overtime.
Correct.
Okay, so there is a potential savings there because of what you're doing. If you hire the ample amount of staff to anticipate going to court and all those other things that you said run overtime,
Some of that could be absorbed.
then I can use the overtime money to, okay. So there are opportunities if we do this right, that we could use overtime money to handle some of this.
It's a potential to, but overtime will never go away.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Thank you, trustee Baum. Thank you, chiefs. Trustee Nyrider.
Um,
Oh, and I would like to thank you for this spreadsheet now that I'm not gonna review it right now, but if you can email it to me so I can digest it when I have the time. Thank you.
I'm assuming you have something
Yeah.
to say.
yeah, a couple of things. Chief Delane, do we have 3 ambulances?
We own 3 ambulances.
All right,
We do not have 3 in service right
3 functional ones, okay. The thing I'm doing in looking at your numbers, that are up here, Matthew, and I appreciate seeing that, and I too will look at them. Are these numbers going to be current enough, depending on the, type of, resolution we may, ask to, go to the public? The last thing we'd want to do is come back and say that, okay, we asked you for, X amount of dollars for 11 or 12 firefighters, and I'm sorry, we didn't take into account, inflation and being competitive. The cost of this, when I look at it, is certainly major, and I think what has to go with it also is, what would be the cost, on the taxpayer? So for instance, on a 250, a 500, a 750, $1 million home, what would be the annual cost if we were to go ahead, depending on which way we go here, with all in 1 year or splitting it or whatever? I think you're gonna need that at a point when you try and sell this.
I did that.
So
So what I did, and it wasn't provided in the packet because I did it earlier today, is I took last year's, tax levy numbers and I increased it by the 1.7 million dollars, and it would raise the mill rate by about 55 cents. So on a $300,000 home, that's about $165.
from what I thought. But I mean, that's first question, you're gonna get asked at town hall meetings is, what's the effect going to be on my,
Mhm.
on my tax bill? So
It's about 55 cents per
Yeah.
$1,000
Yeah.
value of your home.
it's not bad, again, depending on the individual. But I mean, seeing these numbers, certainly does help. Personally, if I were looking at it, you talked about the 1 year or the 2 year approach. I'd be more inclined, to look at it from a 2 year approach, because I can't envision, as we talked about, hiring that many firefighters in 1 year. People aren't out there anymore. They're not making the sacrifices or want to do the training anymore that it requires, but that's only me saying that. I'd be curious as to what the others and what the board was, so. And am I right in that if we would do an April 2024 referendum, the wording for the question has to be done, is it 90 days or 120 days, submitted ahead of time?
That, I think we still have the village attorney online.
Yeah.
I'll let him address that.
The first notice that goes out is 70 days prior to the election, and so it needs to be done before that. Typically, you like to have it done. Yeah, I mean, kind of a rule of thumb is at least 15 days before that, just to give you time to get everything finalized and get it to the clerk, the county clerk's office and all that kind of stuff. But I've seen them done at the 70th day, and it works, but you try not to do that, obviously.
So we really, we're at getting to that point now. By November 1st, maybe we should have, the wording here, discussion as to which way we're gonna go. in order to allow for any last minute changes.
Yeah, I mean, what the DOR suggests for April referendums is to adopt those and to approve the final form of the question sometime after you set your final levy for the current year. So typically we look to do that in November. And so you look to finalize your question, meaning that you put in your exact numbers and all that kind of stuff, sometime late November or into December, which gives you enough time to hit an April election. If you do it before that, then you're relying a little bit too much on estimated numbers, and the DOR just really encourages people to wait until you actually have the actual numbers that you can work off of.
Well, we've been talking about doing this for years and looking at it this for years. And, personally, I think if we're going to do it, let's do it and see what happens. It's got to be, looked at. It's got to be explained properly. And I think this should be something that should be easier to explain than the Richfield resolution. So, like I said, I personally, if it were up to me, I think the 2-year approach might be adequate, but again, that's only me.
Thank you, Trustee
Yep.
Nightrider. So we need a motion.
Oh.
Trustee Baum,
I will make a motion to, well, not sure I want to make the motion yet. Let me ask a question first. The county put their referendum forward. It failed. What did they do for all their additional officers? What happened with them?
Fired.
They get nothing? They hired a couple people? What happened to them?
I'm not sure how many they ended up hiring, but they did hire additional officers, and they did hire some for the I forgot what they called the teams that they were going to use for mental health cases. And they dedicated us. I think some of that came from grants, but I don't know the total amount that they hired. I know they did hire
They did a lot of funding through elimination of positions, as I recall.
that's
And those, because we don't have those positions to eliminate that the county had. Okay, I would like time to digest this, so I don't want to make a decision on which way I want to go with this referendum, or if I want to make suggestions on a different staffing model. I'd like to table this for another meeting. Do we have time to do it? One more meeting?
so I have some very strong feelings, and I'm going to try to be very careful with my word choice tonight. We owe it to our public servants to stop tabling this issue. We have to support this and move this forward at some point in time, albeit imperfect. I don't want to keep this at the committee level any longer, because we are just delaying the process. And the people that are hurt are the people that have their lives on the line for our community. So I would like to get this off of our plate. I understand what you're saying, and I do not disagree with what you're saying. I don't know if the language to move this forward is the language that is proposed, but I think at this time, we have to stop pushing this forward month after month after month. And that is what I would like to do. And